Hey everybody, this is Erman Brady, co-founder of MixKnowledgy, an event series in New York City, Chicago, LA, and Virginia. Today we have actually two co-hosts with me. We have my co-founder, Brandon Waits. Brandon, say hi.
Hey guys.
Hello. And we have Eric Camacho, an associate of mine. Actually, we went to film school together, and we actually work on projects together. So Eric, say hi to the world.
Hello, world.
With us today, we have a very talented film editor, known for a lot of actually Ryan Coogler films. He's worked on one of my favorite films of last year, Creed. He worked on Fruitvale Station and the upcoming Marvel film, Black Panther. Everybody give it up for Michael Shawver.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me.
We're clapping for you. We're clapping for you now. Michael, I'm going to ask you the most basic question I'll be hearing in an interview is, how did you get started in entertainment? Was it the first career path for you, or was it something that kind of, something that came along the way?
For me, it was always sort of a passion. I think it started when I was about 12 or 13. My parents bought one of those big Panasonic VHS camcorders that took up most of your shoulder, and I kind of took that and got some friends together and said, hey, let's try to make some stuff, and I kind of just directed. I mean, I didn't know what filmmaking was, what editing was, any of that stuff, but you make a goofy video with your friends and then you show your parents and neighbors and stuff, and they laugh at it, or even if one little moment impresses them, that's that feeling that I got, sort of was what I got addicted to. So then, all through my teen years, it was, I want to make movies, I'm going to make movies. And I kind of, in my gut, I just had that passion. But, I'm from Rhode Island, and, most people nobody really makes movies out here. There are a handful of people who make it, but, most people are teachers or, accountants, business people, and which is great. But I kind of had that just fire in my gut to create and to do stuff. And, so I kind of just made that decision early on that I'm gonna go for broke and kind of do it. And obviously, you don't know what's gonna happen. And my parents, they wanted me to be financially secure and stuff like that. And obviously, jumping into filmmaking can be the life of an artist, struggling artist and stuff like that. But I just followed my gut and I followed my heart, and then went to University of Rhode Island, where I studied a little bit of film, but not really anything substantial. It was more critical studies, kind of studying, learning theories and concepts, which was great. And I had a few professors there that really pushed me to to follow my dreams and things like that. And after that, I got a job in a restaurant because I heard that to go to LA and make movies, you get a job as a waiter or a bartender, and then go out and do that. So that's, so it was, even though sometimes it felt like, maybe this won't happen, or I always sort of had that in the back of my mind and my heart. And then when I was 24, I made that big decision, that life decision. I said, I'm going to go to LA and I'm going to start wherever I have to start. But part of me just really wanted to know what it was like to make movies and know the ins and outs. So I Googled best film schools. USC, University of Southern California, popped up, and I applied, and somehow they let me in, and that was the start of everything.
There you go. Rhode Island, from here, go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it is. How did you get started with Fruitvale? Was it, through your connections at USC, or?
Yeah, it was, and it was one of the amazing things about going to Los Angeles and going to USC and being in a film program. I mean, really any film program, was that I was finally surrounded by people who had the same dreams and goals and aspirations as I did, and were kind of speaking the same language, even though we didn't really know what we were doing yet. I could ramble off every actor in this movie, and somebody would know what I was talking about, as opposed to Rhode Island, where people would kind of look at me funny. And so it was there that I just, that feeling when you're in a place and you feel like this is the exact place I need to be at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing feeling. That's what I felt when I went there. And I'm the kind of person, I sit in a class, I like to sit in the back and just kind of take everything in. But my second semester, I was in a directing class, and now most short films made in film school are about death or breakups, because that's really the only
That's a true reason.
yeah, it's really the only conflict and pain that people know at that point in time in their lives. Because a lot of people, I went for grad school, but even then, I was only a couple years out of college. Some people were right out of college. But I was in this class, and this one guy was making these 3 to 4 minute short films, some of them with no dialogue at all, but they were about real issues. They were about race. They were about the community that he grew up in, and it just gut punched you and pulled the heartstrings and just really made you feel something. And I always wanted to make movies because I could affect people, and hopefully affect the world in a positive way. And you never know if you really can. But this guy was just making stuff that just spoke to me. And I don't usually do this. I'm usually the kind of person, even now, that when I have an opportunity, when I find an opportunity, I just put my head down and work as hard as I can, and good things come from it. I wouldn't make a good producer because I'm not good at asking for things. But I'm like, I gotta talk to this guy. So I went up to him and I said, look, man, and I'd met him in class and everything, but we never really talked. And I said, look, you're making the exact kind of stuff I want to make. Like I got to work with you somehow. I don't know how, because I went into film school like most people to be a director, which I still want to do, but I found the same kind of joy in editing, and I just said, look, I can edit a little bit, and that was Ryan Coogler. And so he got selected. USC, selects a few directors to direct 12-minute short films that they'll give you $10,000 to do. And I'd taken a few editing classes, so I submitted my reel, and he picked me as one of his editors for the class, and we worked together in that movie. It was a short called Fig, and it was about a prostitute who was trying to get her daughter back from child services, and it was really heart-wrenching, but it did well. It ended up getting on it won a film festival, and one of the prizes was like a 6-month run on HBO.
Wow.
And so that kind of that sort of put Ryan on the map. And which everybody who went to film school with Ryan was just like, this dude's gonna make it. Just wait till the world sees him. And a big part of that is he's one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. Like, you meet the guy and you'll be like, that's my best friend 5 seconds later. He cares about everybody. You'll meet him once, he'll remember your dog's name, your parents' name, where you're from, this and that. He just cares about people so much, and it obviously shows in his movies. So Fig happened, and he was kind of building momentum, and some professors were reaching out to former USC alum and try to get him going. And he's from the Bay Area, and he was so the whole Oscar Grant story happened, and that tragedy. And he when he saw what happened to Oscar Grant, he's from the same community, and he's like, that could have been me and my friend. And so he really had a personal connection to that story, and wrote the script for it. And he through connections at USC, he got put in touch with Forrest Whitaker and Forrest Whitaker's production company, Significant Pictures. So they met, and they hit it off with Ryan, and they said, we want to help you make the movie. And then it was time to crew up. And unfortunately in the industry, what happens is, fortunately, not fortunately, but when there's a new director, what they'll do a lot of times is surround them with experienced people who have been doing it for years, decades even, DPs, editors, so they can help guide the director who's inexperienced. And but the thing is, Ryan doesn't care about that. Ryan is all about loyalty, all about trust. So myself and my co-editor for his short, Her name's Claudia Castello, another amazing editor that she and I come together and work on Ryan stuff. And so, you know, the people who were given the money were going to offer him, you know, a bunch of money to start post-production on Fruitvale, and but only if he had chosen other editors. And he turned the money down. He said, "No, I want my people. You know, I want, you know, I trust them. I've worked with them, and they, you know, have the same kind of vision as I do, and the same kind of sensitivity and different perspectives and stuff like that." So he, you know, he took a chance, and then, you know, the producers finally, I mean, they were under a time limit because they wanted to get it to Sundance, and, you know, they had to say yes, and that's basically how it started.
Well, wow. That's very interesting, because I actually was there at Sundance when he won the U.S. Dramatic Award prize. So I do remember that film and the huge wave it made, and some of the things that happened during that time. And I believe it was at Sundance when the film was purchased by a distribution company. Yes. At that point in time, did they come back to you to ask you for a re-edit to actually make it for a larger audience, or was the film accepted outright?
It was surprisingly it was accepted outright because it was, and I say surprisingly because it was the Weinstein Company, and I don't know if you know, they call him the Harvey Scissorhands because he likes to cut everybody's movies, you know, which is, I mean, he's brilliant at what he does, and he has every right to, but he didn't touch a frame, which was probably the biggest compliment I ever could have gotten. So yeah, he bought it, and he told Ryan that it was cut, you know, more aggressively than he would have cut it. And you know, so you know, you take that when you can get it. So yeah, they took it and they released it, and it was amazing. So that's cool. You were at Sundance. So when he won, you saw were you there when he brought everybody up on stage?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is. Like, he doesn't take any credit for himself. Every award, he just brings everybody up on stage because, I mean, that's the kind of guy he is, you know.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment after, because of course when I was there for the full 10 days, and Fruitvale was the hottest ticket out there. I mean, they opened up with like I think 4 extra shows, and there was no way anyone got a ticket for that. It was no one was trading things in. There was no one getting let in from the wait lines. It was the hardest movie to get into, so I got lucky because I took all the award prize winners as part of my ticket package, so I was able to get in. But there's a beautiful moment at the end of the movie, kind of where the transition from this was the fictional story into the reality, and adding in actual film reels and the footage. Was that idea coming from Ryan, or was that something that, as an editor, that you took the standpoint that you want to bring people to the reality that this did happen, that this is a story that is based on a true story, but this is the actual footage that we can find?
Right. So that's a great question. So what happened was, kind of jumping back a little bit. This was even before Ryan had asked me to, you know, if I wanted to edit the movie, and I was in San Francisco with my parents, and I remember we were in the hotel room and getting ready to go out to dinner or something, and I remember seeing a news report about it was a civil trial. It wasn't the criminal trial. It was a civil trial about when Oscar Grant's family and you know, with the civil case. And I remember they did a recap of what had happened, and I was floored. You know, where I'm from, we don't hear about these kind of things, and I just remember being really pissed off. I remember being pissed off that it happened, and it happened to someone that was around my age, and I couldn't believe that. And then I was pissed off that I hadn't even heard of it, and if I hadn't heard of it, you know, and I try to stay up on news and current events, so I knew if I didn't hear of it, most of the country didn't even hear about it. So then, you know, 6 months later, Ryan called me up and said, "Hey, I'm doing a movie called Fruitvale Station. It's about a guy named Oscar Grant," and you know, those things started to come together. And then so a couple months later, I got the script, and I was reading it, and I remember my first thought was, we need to use the actual footage, the YouTube video, because that was why it was such a big, one of the things
Yes.
about that whole incident was
Yeah.
that it was on YouTube, and on one level it's how this new world technology and stuff, it doesn't lie. We got all these people filming on their cell phones, and so that was my first thought. So I talked to our producer friend, his name's Seb O'Handy, and he produced Fruitvale, and he's produced countless other Sundance movies up to this point, but it was all our first movie. And I said, look, I want to use this footage. Like, do you think Ryan would go for it? And Ryan, and he said, no, I don't. He doesn't want to use any real footage. He wants to be respectful of the family, because that's another element. The family was his Oscar Grant's entire family was at Sundance at the premiere. Yeah. So we have a responsibility to a human being, and that was a whole because the first pass of the movie we made him way too nice, and we realized that he wasn't human. And to do him justice, we had to make him human. But anyway, so Seb had told me, Ryan didn't want to use it, so I sat on it. I sat on the idea, and this was one of the first big lessons in editing too. Is there's a lot of politics, and I wouldn't really call that politics necessarily, but if I had come out right away and said, Ryan, I want to do this, he may have just shut it down right away. Ryan's usually not like that. He usually says, I'll think about it, or we'll see. But there was one day, and I just couldn't. This is probably a couple months into editing, and I couldn't hold it in. I said, look, I really think we should start the movie with this, because we were having trouble figuring out how to open the movie, and the best way possible, which happens on every movie. It happened on Creed. It happens on everything, and because it's so important. You can lose the audience in the first 10 minutes, and then the rest of the movie almost doesn't even matter. But so we talked about it, and we tried it, and we weren't sure, and we talked about it, and we just over and over and over, and showed people we trusted, other filmmakers, other some of our professors from film school, and it just seemed to be a consensus that that was the way to open the movie, and our intention was coming up with this, and I told Ryan, I go, look, you're from the Bay, this happened, everybody knows this happened. Nobody knows this happened where I'm from. We need to slap people in the face with this. Like this is such a messed up thing, and something that people don't know about. And what it ended up doing narratively and storytelling wise was something that we realized a little bit later on was the whole movie became dramatic irony, where something bad is going to happen to this guy. So every single moment, even him driving to the store, him dropping his kid off at school, becomes a huge moment, because you think, oh, I like this guy, he's nice, he's a good dad, but then that thought comes in, wait, something bad is going to happen, and through the whole movie you're hoping against all hope that maybe he's going to pull through, maybe but that dread, that you always want to play off the audience's hopes and fears, to make every moment as compelling as you can. And so that was kind of the effect of it. That wasn't really our intention, but I learned a big lesson that way, and it had a really great effect. I mean, I had friends who said that they're like, Mike, you know me, I don't care about social issues that much, but man, after that movie, I just sat there and had a 20-minute conversation with the guy next to me, it's a complete stranger, just about what was going on. And that's that. If I never made another movie after that, that's my whole career in life is worth it at that point.
Love it. That's fantastic. Because I do remember when I saw the movie, I was there with a bunch of my film school friends. It was a trip for us. We were like, let's go to Sundance to see where the cutting edge and where the tastemakers are making movies. And we sat down and we watched your film. And this is my second time at Sundance, but I will honestly say I have not seen a movie that's been at Sundance that was so cleanly edited that it played with the emotions and carried a person through a movie so succinctly, so well.
Wow, thank you.
Which leads me to my next question. As an editor, when you get this footage in and you look at the script, how do you create that type of pace? Because there was a moment in the film where I totally forgot that this was a real story. I was stuck so deeply into the narrative that I did have those feelings like, man, Oscar has to survive. All these things. No, he's not going to die at the end. And then when it happens, it's like snaps me back into reality that this is a true story. And I think that utilizing that footage in the back end and the front end was effective to remind us that this is reality. This is not just a made-up story, that this is a world that we exist in. When you were cutting the story, when you look at the script and you're looking for those opportunities, what was your process in creating that type of pacing and creating that type of emotion?
Well, to be completely honest with you, the process was getting thrown into a situation that I didn't have any experience doing, and figuring it out. And to be honest with you, that's what it was. And a big thing that I'm still I'm still learning. I'm getting a lot better at it. Is sort of trusting your own taste. And because honestly, I mean, we all get into, we have passions about things, but really, especially in the arts, but anything, you get into anything because you have taste, because you have good taste. And most people, artists and stuff like that, they, they'll try it, they'll make a movie, and they'll look at it and they'll be like, why is this terrible? Why is this not what I want it to be? Why is this whatever? And a lot of people quit at that point, and unfortunately, but what I'd say is just keep going and keep pushing, and learning to trust yourself, because as an editor, you're really the first audience. So for example, I get the footage, and I remember this one shot specifically where one of Oscar's friends, his name's Kenny in real life, I forget his name in the movie, but he had dreads and stuff, and I just remember this one shot where it was right after Oscar gets shot, and he's on the ground, and he kind of just like falls back in disbelief. And I remember seeing that moment when watching the footage, and I started getting choked up, because it reminded me of, or made me think of what my reaction would be if one of my best friends was just shot, or that happened to. And so, I put that shot aside, knowing that I'm going to cut this in, because there's so many decisions to make, so much footage, and what do you choose, what do you not choose, and honestly, my gut, my taste, my emotion, got caught up in that moment. So, you have to believe that other people, when they watch it, will feel the same thing, because we're all human. We all, share a human experience, and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of re-editing, there's a lot of editing, like you talked about pace. For us, we make sure we cut for emotion all the time. Like there's no reason, unless you absolutely have to. We always look for an emotional reason to cut, because the cut is so powerful, and it's sort of, the cut brings you to the next piece of information that you want to tell the audience and sort of have them feel. So, it was honestly being a little over our heads. I mean, I slept in a closet, because we had a 1-bedroom apartment, and my co-editor, she's female, so I gave her the bedroom, and I slept in a little closet with no door, no light, just an air mattress on the floor, and worked 7 days a week on this movie for about 3.5 to 4 months. And then up to right before Sundance, I mean, I can't, you talk about Sundance and how great it is, but it's funny because from our end, we were all so sick, we were all so tired, because we had just finished. We delivered the movie, I think, the Monday or Tuesday before the Thursday premiere to Sundance.
Oh, wow.
And Ryan and I were up 23 hours a day some nights. We're sleeping 10 minutes at a time in a parking lot at the color correction place, or at Skywalker Ranch, where they were amazing enough to help us and do our sound. And so you get in it, and you just have to trust your gut and trust your heart, and because you don't know how it's going to be received, and you just know how you feel about it. And through the years and on the different movies I've worked on, I pick up little things, and now I'm quicker, and I trust myself more, and I know what I'm looking for a lot of times more. But it's on the job training, as Ryan would always say. Just
there you go,
figuring it out, learning as you go, and just working as hard as you can.
There you go. Yeah, man, we definitely love your hustle, and part of that is actually finding a rep. So for those who are calling in who are film editors and have a talent like you, for them, it's like, what's the next step? So for you, where did the agent come along, and how did you eventually get one?
Well, here's the funny thing is, and the reason I say it's funny, because in my mind, Fruitvale came out, we won Sundance, came in the theaters, made a bunch of money, comparatively to the to the budget. But no, I got no interest from nobody. Called me, no agents, nobody
Wow.
reached out. It was really strange. And I tell people that, like people who have been in the industry forever, and they're shocked by it too. You know, but it's tough. You know, Ryan had representation even before Fruitvale, so he was cool. But you know, there wasn't anything like that. But I did my next movie was I did a recut of an indie film, and you know, they'd been working on it for a little while, and they decided they needed to search editors, and so I worked on that. And the thing is with that, you know, it got into a couple of festivals, but it was one of the producers on that show and the director who, you know, had been working around town and knew people, and they reached out to agents that they knew. And then once they said, yeah, we're working with this guy, he's pretty good at what he does, and you know, this and that, and then I started getting phone calls. So I mean, it's honestly the prime example of it's, you know, who you know. And obviously if Fruitvale never happened, then, you know, who am I? You know, what have I done? What can I offer, you know, to these people? But you know, as a rep. But it's really, you know, it is who you know. But you know, to be honest with you, you know, a lot of times I'll give people advice and just say that one of the most important things you can do is find the people that you want to work with and who want to make similar things in you, and that you get along with in a collaborative way, that you enjoy working with, that you wake up in the morning, because this is a hard job. I mean, you know, my average week is 12 hours a day, you know, 5 days a week. So, you know, if you don't like the people you work with, but, you know, I met Ryan, thought the guy was awesome, thought he was making good stuff. We worked together, collaborated well. And then, you know, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world, because of, you know, all that happened. But, you know, I've made movies that no one's ever heard of with some of my best friends. And, you know, it's that's what it's all about. And and good things happen, you know, good things happen from there. But, you know, I would say, you know, a big thing to do is expand your network, because, you know, I have a producer friend who has been hustling and doing his thing, and just produced Drake Doremus's last movie for, you know, Scott Free Productions, and I recommended him, so he's going to meet with someone in my agency, and, you know, something might happen from that, you know, if it works out. So, you know, your reputation is huge, you know, working hard, that kind of thing.
There you go.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. So you've worked on Fruitvale Station, Creed, like Panther. Is there a difference in your approach when you're cutting for action versus drama?
You know, it's there is and there isn't. It's tough. I mean, there isn't only because, you know, no matter what, you got to tell a story, you know, and that's why, you know, we cut for emotion. And you know, there was an interesting thing that happened on Creed where, you know, we because of visual effects and because, you know, they had to add some crowd in the background of the big final fight, we needed to edit that movie, that sequence, you know, very quickly and very, very shortly after they finished shooting it, to send it over to VFX, you know, so they can start working on it, so it'll be ready for a release date. And you know, we did it, and the producers were pretty happy with it. But they wanted to hire someone else to come in and re-edit the fight, because they didn't think it was, you know, good enough. They didn't think it was good enough as far as you know, a fight scene, you know, should be. But what really ended up happening was we edited it so it would have a story. You know, we edited so that Adonis, you know, would be overmatched, and then find it in himself, and through the coaching with Rocky and things like that, to achieve his goal, and to find it in himself, to reach the places that he you know, he wanted to reach, and the end of his journey for the movie. So, you know, basically our version is what was seen, but you know, we telling the story and cutting for emotion is you know, the paramount, the most important thing. But when you're cutting for action, you also got to have the cool stuff. you also got to have the stuff that makes people go, ooh, like, wow. So, it really kind of goes down to, again, trusting your own taste and trusting your own gut, where, if I'm cutting a scene, a fight between a boyfriend and girlfriend, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of both people and also the shoes of the audience, because, if I can make myself feel what I want the audience to feel, a lot of times the audience will actually end up feeling that. But specifically, from shot to shot, action, keeping the energy up, cutting when the audience wouldn't expect you to cut, things like that. But really just comes down to taste and making yourself, because on Creed we would cut the montage, we would cut the fight. And if by the end we were jumping up and we were shadow boxing and we were really fired up and really into it, we knew everybody, a lot of other people would be, or hoped that they would be, because that's all we knew, how to do, was make ourselves fired up and excited and along with it,
Right.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, kind of piggybacking off of that, is there a difference between coming from an independent, smaller studio and working with an MGM or a Marvel? Is there different pressures when you work with those two different types of environments?
Yeah. There definitely is, and one thing I'm learning is that the pressure in a lot of ways you kind of put it on yourself, because you think, oh, MGM, Rocky movie, like big Rocky fan base, or a Marvel movie, you kind of see the mountain in front of you, as opposed to the steps. But it's one step at a time, stuff like that. But there are different things, because with Creed and with Black Panther, like, these movies are already getting release dates. They're already going to be out. So you just have to make it the best you can. There's another kind of pressure on an indie movie, because no one knows about it probably, unless there's a big star involved and it's been reported on. But thousands and thousands of movies are made per year. So obviously, working on these movies, you got to make it the best it can be, because if it's not, then and even sometimes it can be the best it can be and it doesn't go anywhere, and people don't really see it. So I think there's more riding on getting the exposure, and then of course when you have a Rocky movie or Marvel movie, these fans are rabid. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a diehard Marvel fan. I'm I love all the Rocky movies. I just edited a TV remake of Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
And which was fun, and I did, and it expanded my my ability and my repertoire of editing moves, I guess. But those fans are more. I had friends from high school, some girls who I was friends with in high school and college, were like, do not mess this movie up. Do not mess it up. Dirty Dancing is our favorite movie. So you have those kind of pressures, you know what I mean? Like, as fans who are hoping that, we don't go into the next Rocky movie, hoping to see Rocky 5 again, because nobody wants to see Rocky 5 again. Not even Sly. Sly's the first one to tell you that Rocky 5 was not a good movie. So there's some different ones, and like Fruitvale, the pressure was all on us, because it's our first feature, so there's the pressure of, okay, this was a Sundance Lab movie, but we have to get into Sundance. If we don't get into Sundance, we fail. Then there's, okay, well, this is my first feature. If we don't get into Sundance, or if this movie doesn't do anything, then what's going to happen to my career if this is my one big shot? But it's one of those things where, I think you just gotta, you just do it. When you have that kind of opportunity, when that opportunity finds you or you find it, you just gotta do your best to not let that pressure, because that pressure, if you let it get to you, it can cause you to procrastinate, or it can cause you to try to force things in the movie that don't work, or things like that. So everything kind of has has pressure. I mean, Black Panther, there's a lot of pressure, there's pressure I put on myself now because I would, this could put my career into another place, succeed or fail kind of thing. So yeah, there's pressure and everything. But the one thing that we always say to each other is it's just the movie, it's nobody's living. I mean, nobody's dying from it. It's just a movie. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy it. We get to be artists. We get to do something that not a lot of people have a chance to do. And if we make people, feel emotion, and we can tell a good story, and people can enjoy it, then it's all worth it.
Definitely, yeah. It's a fun job, but part of the fun is actually being able to watch movies. So, as a film viewer, whether it's something you grew up with or something you saw recently. My next question actually is a two-parter. Is there a movie that you recommend for editors to watch as an example, as like a really good movie to better your craft? And the second part is, are there some exercises that you can recommend for editors to try to get better at the craft?
Good questions. Okay, so I mean, I can start with the second one. I mean, to get better at your craft, you just got to do it, and even if if you're an editor and even if you don't you don't have any aspiration to be a director or a DP or anything like that, go borrow some friends, go get your family member, your dog, and go shoot stuff. Go shoot stuff with your iPhone. Go shoot. Whatever, and have a goal, have an intention. Like, you want a suspenseful scene, shoot a dog that's waiting for a treat. Will it jump? Will it not jump? Little things like that. Can be great. Or an action scene, or a basketball game, or whatever it is. The best way to learn is by doing. And there are other opportunities. There are people. It depends on where you are and whatever. But even in Rhode Island, right before I went to USC, I found a group of people that want to make movies. And if you say, hey, I want to be a part of this, I'll give you my weekends, or I'll give you a couple nights a week if I can. I'll help you assist. Be an assistant on this if I can cut a couple scenes. And practice, because the best way to learn is really by doing. Secondly, I mean, I was fortunate in film school because I had professors who had footage from movies. Like I cut a action scene from Gladiator as a exercise. And it wasn't very good, but it was good practice with that. If you have the ability to rip a movie, recut a scene. If if there's a scene you don't like, recut it because it's too slow, and you want to see what it does to make you what it feels, and you kind of you said watching movies is great, but one amazing thing about being an editor is that you get to watch what you do immediately, and that one of the toughest things as an editor that I've really had to work on, and everybody does, and it's not just being an editor, it's any sort of creative position, is being able to sort of just wipe the slate clean and watch what you did with the freshest eyes possible, because the script, the story, so things you're connecting in your mind may not be what the audience is going to connect, from one scene to the other, or one line to the next. So, really kind of seeing things the first way every time is really hard to do, but it's something that you actually can learn and can master. But and then that leads me to the first part of the question. Well, actually, no. The second part is, if you can't do and you have trouble doing that, then it's really just watching. And find those movies that you like. Find the movies you don't like. I've watched sometimes. I probably watched more movies that I didn't like just to study them, because if I can identify in movies that I work on stuff that I don't like, I won't do that. Or different techniques. For example, not to knock anybody's done it, but the Fantastic Four movie that came out that got pretty bad reviews. I actually didn't think it was that bad of a movie. And now, of course, like, I know Michael B. Jordan, and so obviously, I want to, I'm always looking for the best, what he does. But I honestly thought that a lot of those action sequences weren't cut quick enough, weren't exciting enough, or some scenes weren't stretched out enough to kind of keep me at the edge of my seat before they, answer the question. So now going into this superhero movie, I know what I didn't like about that, to make sure that I don't do that, But yeah. So and then to answer the first question, I mean, my favorite movie, the movie I'll always go back and look at is Goodfellas. It's just my favorite movie, and it spans so much time, but it doesn't feel like that, the way it's paced. That's just a great movie. But one of the movies that I love watching, because I can just, the more I edit, the more I realize how difficult this must have been to edit, is Memento, Christopher Nolan's movie. Because, I mean, if you think about that, they're telling the story backwards. I mean, it's hard enough to tell a story forwards. So when you actually have to tell it backwards, there's so many things that you have to make sure. And I guarantee you they flop scenes around. They move this one here, move that one back. I mean, maybe they didn't. Maybe it was just written so well. But I haven't been on a movie yet that we haven't moved scenes around, because they just service the movie better in a different place. But yeah, that one I'd really say, is just a masterclass of a very, very balanced, difficult and balanced movie, that just kind of, keeps raising those questions, has great narrative momentum, things like that. Another one is also The Game by David Fincher.
Yes.
With Michael Douglas. I usually forget about that. I mean, I used to work at Blockbuster, and mainly for the free rentals, but people would come in like, oh, I've seen every movie, can you recommend it? I always recommend that. Most of the time people haven't seen it, and they were just blown away. So anybody listening, if you haven't seen The Game, it's great, but they do such an amazing job of misdirecting you and kind of pushing and pulling you, and a lot of movies that I like to look at as far as editing, it's very important, at least to me in filmmaking, to, as an audience member, when you sit in a movie, you want to feel like you're in good hands. You want to feel like the director and the filmmakers are all in control. That they're showing you exactly what they want to show you to take you along this ride. So all you have to do is sit back and go along for it. So any movie that especially now, because if if you ever made anything, or once you start learning the ins and outs of filmmaking, it kind of ruins movies for you. And because it's crazy. Like, I remember, like, I loved, I really enjoyed Inception, but I remember sitting in the movie thinking, okay, how did they do that? The hallway thing. Did they tilt like a set up and shoot down? Did they do it just sideways? Did they have an anti-gravity chamber? So your mind just goes to all these places. But but when I do see a movie and I'm lost in it, and it's over, and I'm just like, wow, like, I got to just sit and be in that alpha trance the entire time with that movie. That's the movie that I'll go back and break down and analyze and see why I got lost.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
To kind of take us in a little bit of a different direction. Something you said earlier really resonated with me about building networks. Utilizing film school to build that network and start creating networks. Are there any current websites that you would recommend that any filmmakers outside of a big metropolitan region such as Hollywood or New York or Atlanta can become a part of to create that larger network and interact with people in different areas?
I mean, right now all the social media tools are, it's something that we've never had, before the last 5-10 years, and utilizing that. I mean, Twitter is a great thing. I mean, I've heard stories of people who, just wanted to find some way in the industry, get their foot in, and they they tweeted at somebody. Like people would I'm not on Twitter anymore. I'm being careful about the whole Black Panther thing, but people tweeted at me about, oh, this and that in Creed, or I saw this and that was really cool, whatever. And I responded to them. I thought it was really cool that people saw my work and responded to something that I put out there. And so finding a way to reach out directly to the filmmakers. Now, obviously, you're not going to get Leonardo DiCaprio on the phone, but a lot of times, filmmakers are just like people. I mean, right before you called, when you called me right before the interview, I was changing my 6-month-old baby. You know what I mean? And so it's just, I think that could be a good way to do it. Facebook, there are Facebook groups like that. I'm trying to think, because in Rhode Island, there aren't a lot of people, but I found there's a and I'm sure a lot of places have it, but there's usually, even in smaller places that maybe don't have a lot of the industry, there's a film commission. And a lot of places have it, even just if, people, bigger productions or TV shows or whatever will go to those places, and the film commission kind of sets them up with stuff and helps them, guide them through that. And I, before I was at SC, this is like towards the end of my college, my undergrad time, I just called them. And I went and I talked to the director of the film commission. He put me in touch with a couple guys who were making an indie movie at that time, really low budget, but doing some, they had a crane on one day, which was one of the coolest things I'd seen at that time. And they, I was amazed to find that Rhode Island had, there's a Rhode Island Film Commission. They had a casting company that they worked with, and I did an internship with the casting company for a couple months. Met some great people there, and I mean, I still stay in touch with a lot of those people, and when they work on movies, they shoot, they're like, hey, can you edit it? And if I haven't been able to yet, but I still want to someday. I'd love to work with them when, in the future and stuff like that. So, I definitely think a lot of places will have that. I mean, really, I'd say the social media thing. I mean, Craigslist comes to mind. Posting Craigslist, hey, you want to shoot a short film? When, I got an idea. I got an idea on the camera. Do you want to, that kind of thing. And it really just starts on that level. Meeting the people that want to do the same kind of thing as you, and just working together, and you kind of grow that way, and you meet more people, and yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so out of all your films, Michael, student, indie, studio, is there one that special to your heart, and why?
Well, Creed. I mean, Fruitvale obviously is the first one, and it was a very important story, but I can't watch that movie anymore. Creed, obviously, I always say it's the greatest movie I'll ever work on, just because it was a Rocky movie. It was with Ryan. It was, Michael B. Jordan. It was just a lot of things all around. But there's one that not a lot of people have heard of. It's actually on Netflix right now. It's called Fourth Man Out. And it's about a what's up?
We know Lauren Avino.
Oh, no way.
The Small World, right?
Oh yeah. Have you guys seen it?
I haven't seen it yet, but literally a month ago I had lunch with her.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk about that. That's cool. Yeah. Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
Her and Lauren and Jed, the other producers. But one of my best friends from film school, Andy, his name is Andrew Nachman, really talented director. He was working at the time as an assistant editor on a bunch of reality TV shows, and just trying to do what he can to stay afloat and learn and grow. And then while he got his first movie off the ground, and it was one of those situations where it was really low budget, and I was looking for my next project, but I loved the script, and Andy was doing it. Andy was one of my best friends, and we hang out twice a week anyway. So, sitting in my bedroom on my iMac cutting this movie, every day with him, just laughing and make ourselves laugh would be a dream come true. But, financially, unfortunately we have to live, we have to pay bills, rent, stuff like that. So I wasn't sure if I could do it. And, it's funny, the way that I make decisions and listen to my gut, I get in a quiet place, I clear my mind, and I just ask myself, should I do this or should I not do it? And if I say, should I do this movie, and I get a happy feeling an excited feeling in my gut, I do it. And it has not failed me up to this point. And, I ended up doing that movie, and, it ended up winning, I got in the Seattle Film Festival, and ended up winning the Audience Award at a bunch of different festivals, including Outfest in LA. And it got picked up. It's on Netflix. So, it was this little movie that and I mean, I love the movie, and I really enjoy it. I think it's funny. It's heartfelt. I'm really proud of it. But I think for me, it was I trusted my gut, and took a risk, and it paid off, And then right after that was Creed. So, financially I was okay, but it all kind of worked out. But I'm really, really proud of that movie. It was also the first comedy that straight comedy I ever did. So,
yeah,
it was a little bit a few different muscles to use, but I think that one is close to me.
We'll definitely have to check it out. Fourth Man Out. Yeah. This is the portion where we jump in on the line and call on the audience. So I believe the first question is from Nancy. Nancy, where are you from?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, Nancy.
Yes.
Yeah,
hey,
I can hear you.
Hi. I'm from Baltimore.
Cool.
And hi, fellow USC alum.
Ooh, fight on. Trojan Mafia.
So thank you guys again for this. This is great. And I just wanted to know which TV shows, past or current, are recommended watches for editors?
Good question.
That's a really good question. TV shows. One of my favorites from a couple of years ago, which I thought the narrative structure was incredible and kept me hooked, was Lost. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but it's an ABC show where people are lost on an island, and they would go back in time, forward in time, all this stuff. But it was always you could always follow it, but it never left you bored.
Right.
It went a bit off the rails eventually, but I still enjoy a lot of it. And then my favorite show of all time, well, it's a toss up between that and Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is great because they balance a ton of characters and locations and stuff, but I would say The Wire is a big one. And
oh yeah.
Yeah, Baltimore. So but it a few. That was one, I watched before I went to film school, and then after it got even better because I saw things that they were doing. On one level, there's no score in the entire show, and myself and Ryan are firm believers that, when we do our first passes and even our second, third, fourth, we don't put any music in. Because if you can make the emotion sing, if you can make the ride happen from the emotion, then the music just is just cherry on top of the sundae kind of thing.
Right.
And there's no score in that. Except I think the season finales might, but and so it's very realistic. It's very they have to be good storytellers. It has to be paced well. It has to be it has to weave well. And they're telling. And The Wire is interesting too because it is an American city, but it's a very unique look at a very unique city and situation, and so you're kind of having to. It's not like, oh, we're in New York and that's all you have to say to the audience, So you're kind of weaving people like that. One specific thing that I saw in one episode was great. It was an episode where they were doing a stakeout on the roof. And one of the characters named Bubbles is helping to identify who the drug dealer is, and he puts a red hat on this guy. And one of the most interesting things about that scene, though, is I realized the second time through that in shooting that, obviously they cut it together to make it look like the same place, but they never showed the police on the roof and the people on the ground in the same shot. And it made me start thinking, and I realized what they actually did was they shot the stuff on the roof with the police and their conversation, their dialogue in one location. And then in the location where the drug dealers were, they had a guy playing a bucket drum and going, and it was great because it gave it flavor and kind of made it come alive. But what they did was they kept, as they were cutting back and forth from the roof to the ground, they kept that drum playing. So you never ever second guess that this was in two different locations. Right. And it kind of it lets you just be in the scene and be in the moment.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because a lot of times I feel like if you take away the music from a scene, that's when you see if everything that was done lines up correctly with the editing.
Right.
Because I feel like there are a lot of really movies I feel like should have been great, or television shows that could have been great, that sometimes the editing maybe relied too heavily on one element rather than incorporating all of them. And a lot of times I feel like that's the music, because people expect the emotion to come strictly from, or not strictly, but, heavily from the music. And you have everything else going on, the actors, of course, the writing, dialogue, so shots. So thank you. That was really fantastic.
Oh, well, no problem. Thank you for asking that great question.
Awesome. Nancy, did you want to ask the next question, or are you good?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay.
I know, because there's other people. So.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Our next caller is Andrea from somewhere near LA. Andrea, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Hey, Andrea. I'm good. How are you? How's the weather out there?
Oh, it's beautiful and rainy.
Nice. I miss the rain so much when I'm out there.
Oh, I know. It's awesome. I mean, we definitely need it here in California.
Oh, yeah.
But my question is, what were some of the struggles that you endured while getting into the entertainment industry?
That's a really good question. So, it's I would say one thing is proving to other people that you can do the job.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, I've been really fortunate with opportunities I've had, but I'm 32, and that's considered very young in the industry.
Absolutely.
And so there, people. I mean, I've had people ask my agent how old I am, and then they're not interested when they find out, my age. But you know what I do? That's just on the chip of my shoulder. It's just, that's fine. They're going to regret not hiring me. They're, and that, I just, you find ways to kind of turn that in. But I would say, as far as, actually creatively, things like that, I think one is like I said before, is really just trusting yourself. Trusting yourself, trusting your process, and one of the hardest things, especially in this industry, everybody knows how to do it. I'm being sarcastic, but everybody says, oh, that's how it's done. You do it this way, you do it that way, you do it this way. But if your gut tells you no, and I've made the mistake. I received a script. After, I think it would have been my third movie, And I read it, and it was a good script, but it wasn't for me. And I told them, I said, I don't think I'm the right editor for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who gave me the script really pushed me and said, no, you need to go talk to this person. You need to talk to these people. They make good movies, and the director is this guy, and da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, I'll meet him. So I met him, and they ended up hiring me, but I ended up getting fired 2 weeks later.
No way.
Yeah, because and now granted, like, the director's a super nice guy, but he was kind of shooting ridiculous amounts of footage and not following the script and not really talking to me about it. And when we met the 2 times, he brought his buddies in the room and talked to them more than he talked to me. And so there was no way I was ever going to get what he wanted. I mean, we just come from 2 very different schools of working and collaborating and stuff like that. So, but I mean, obviously, and once you fired me, my first thought was, I'm terrible at this. I shouldn't be, like, I'm never going to succeed at this. And, and honestly, I think a lot of my struggles that I had to work through were really internal, and because
Totally.
we're always comparing ourselves to other people. And, we always want to be, we want to be, if you're a director, you want to be the next Scorsese or Spielberg, or, editor, you want to be Dalma Schoonmaker or any of those amazing, Michael Kahn, stuff like that. But you're you. You are where you are, and I believe that if you stay true to yourself and true to your heart, and it that's how how you got to get through, because everybody's going to tell you the right way to do things, and you're not always going to agree with it. And
I love that.
Well, good.
I love that because it's very positive. It's positive,
yeah.
And it's very enlightening, especially because in Hollywood there's a lot of people that tell you no, that you can't do something or whatnot. So I think that's a very positive mentality to have. So I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, no problem. And I mean, and I working with Ryan Coogler, I see him do it. I mean, I've seen people say things to him, executives from studios say things to him, and he takes it in and thinks about it. And if it's not his vision, he has no problem saying he doesn't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big reason why he succeeds. And I've learned a lot from him. And but yeah, I mean, and I tell one of the things I hear a lot out in LA and in the industry is that's how things are done in the industry. And usually that's to justify someone being an asshole to somebody else, and yelling at them or cussing them out or something. But I just tell people, like, you just be true to who you are, because if you think about it, if you change and you're not, and you listen to other people and you become you conform to what it is, and because I mean I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, I want to make cinema better. I want to make movies better. I want every movie that goes in the theaters to be unbelievable and change my life. But when everybody wants to kind of do the same thing, and it can be very easy, because it's tempting to just fall in line and take the money they offer you and stuff like that. But my advice is just, if you change who you are to get to where you want to be, who are you when you get there?
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Amen.
Ooh.
Amen.
I love it,
dude. That's so good. I love that.
Cool. You can use it. I haven't copyrighted it or anything.
We're gonna take it. Thank you so much, Andrew. I really, really, really appreciate your question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Here's the time to talk to Michael. Don't be shy now.
Also, I was going to mention, I don't know if you guys have a forum or a website or something, but or if people can reach out to you. But if anybody has questions for me, and if they don't want to ask them on here or whatever, I'm happy to give my email. I can't promise I'll get to it right away, just because of the amount of stuff I have to do, but I'm happy to try.
Oh, love it. No, feel free to go ahead and well, would you like to say it now, or are you just gonna, maybe we can post it somewhere?
I'll give it to you, and then you can, people can reach out to you if that's cool.
Awesome. Very, very cool. I know we have some shy folks out here, but hey, thank you so much for your time today. Eric, please let us know where people can find you.
People can find me
Yeah. Obviously, we'd love to add you on. Yes, sir.
Yeah, on social media, my Twitter is at EC8MA001. Same thing on Instagram. Just follow me. I'm going to be doing some independent films and some new projects, hopefully here in Virginia and elsewhere.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Where can we find you?
Okay, I'm on Facebook, also Twitter and Instagram. My handle is bwaits07, BWAITES07.
You can find me at Erman_LA, ERMAN_LA on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow MixKnowledgy at MixKnowledgy on Instagram and Twitter as well. Michael, do you have any social media you would like to share as well?
I'm actually, I got off social media a little while ago, just, for my upcoming project and stuff, so I do not.
No worries. Everyone, thank you so much thank you for joining us the entire year. It's been a pleasure doing these interviews for you, and also for those who have attended our events. Thank you so much. We have a lot in store for 2017. This is the last conference call of 2016, so we do appreciate just being here and supporting our cause, and we will see you in 2017. Thank you all.